Day 73, I'm reading If God is Love, page 72, The Power of Empathy. A young man named Francis, while riding his horse one day, encountered a leper. He and the leper sheeted away from each other. The leper because he expected abuse, and Francis because he was repulsed by the man's disfigurement and feared the disease. But something extraordinary happened on the road. Francis reported that as he looked upon the leper, something changed inside him. Suddenly, he found he loved the leper. He dismounted from his horse, embraced the leper, and gave him all the money he had. He was filled with kindness, and his life was never the same. Soon after this episode, Francis visited Rome and found himself drawn not to the marvelous buildings, marble statues, or gem-encrusted crosses. Instead, he spent his time among the beggars who wandered the holy city, listening to their stories and experiencing the sneers and catcalls of those entering the cathedrals to honor God. He returned from Rome and began to pray. He found his prayers answered when one day he attended Mass and heard the gospel lesson in which the disciples of Christ are commanded to possess neither gold nor silver nor scrip for the journey, neither two coats, neither shoes, nor yet staves. Francis knew those words were for him. Francis of Assisi preached to birds, begged forgiveness from wolves, and shared his bowel with the poor. He was a bright light in the dark age. His Franciscan order, established in 1208, has touched the lives of millions. His rule was simple: whoever may come to us, whether a friend or foe, a thief or robber, let him be kindly received. Should there be a brother anywhere in the world who has sinned, no matter how great his fault, let him not go away after he has once seen a face without showing mercy toward him. My greatest challenge isn't believing God will save every person. It is treating each and every person as a child of God. It is remembering this wonderful grace, which has overwhelmed and transformed me, is also at work in every other person. It is seeing the worst of sinners and the beloved of God. This is never easy. Several years ago, I struck up a friendship with a man in prison. Kurt was a member of a Bible study I taught. He was intelligent, articulate, and well-versed in theology. He had a quick wit and a good sense of humor. When he was released from prison, we continued our friendship. Early in our friendship, I discovered Kurt has been convicted of child molestation. Having worked with others who had committed this crime, I thought myself immune to reversion. When Kurt told of his relationship with his victim, the manipulation, the coercion, the sexual activity, I imagined all of this occurring with a teenage boy. When Kurt told me his victim had been five, I couldn't hide my shock and dismay. In that moment, I realized the challenge of loving every person. It took everything in me not to call Kurt a pervert. Of course, calling him this would have ended our friendship, declared him less than human, and absolved me from treating him as a child of God. A broken and flawed child of God, but a child of God nonetheless. My belief that he and I would spend eternity together required I not turn my back on him. Instead, I committed myself to being part of his transformation. The abhorrent nature of his crime made his need for my love and acceptance even more crucial. We know those who most children often repeat their crime. Without friends who love and change them, they are far more likely to hurt another child. I suspect one of the reasons so many sexual offenders repeat their crimes is because we ostracize them rather than help them heal. This is why Jesus' treatment of lepers is so important to Christian ethics. Leprosy was not understood in that time as a physical ailment. It was seen as a punishment from God for some heinous sin. The willingness of Jesus to forgive, touch, and heal lepers is more than an argument for his supernatural abilities. It is a proclamation of his theology. God loves all people, even those we find abhorrent. Of course, being gracious to others comes not just when we believe God loves them as much as God loves us. It also requires us to remember that within each of us, given different circumstances, resides the potential for good, both great evil and great good. Whenever I tell the story of Kurt, I realize some won't accept or understand my love for him. Some have been victims of sexual molestation and themselves, and having yet to experience healing, will find it difficult to feel my emotion other than a loathing for him. Others will reject him because they fear the damage he might do to them or those they love. Still others, never having experienced his struggle, will judge him depraved. Pain, fear, and pride are enemies of grace. They make it impossible for us to forgive, to risk a relationship, and to consider our own frailty. The only way to overcome these obstacles is empathy. Kurt's story didn't begin with his molestation of a 5-year-old. It began with a lonely childhood, an emotionally distant father, a series of sexual experiences that distorted Kurt's understanding of appropriate behavior, a troubled marriage, and a set of circumstances that allowed Kurt to spend many unsupervised hours with this young boy. None of these facts excuses Kurt's behavior, but all of these contributed to his crime. The only reason I was able to remain in relationship with Kurt was because I was able to empathize with him. Instead of seeing him as a 40-year-old man taking sexual advantage of a child, I chose him to see as a lonely boy, a neglected child, an abused teenager, and a troubled and broken adult. Being gracious to Kurt required me to see him as a person struggling to love and be loved and not knowing how. Okay, maybe I should stop here. No, a few more sentences. This empathy didn't trivialize Kurt's crime. It simply reminded me of our common humanity. It created the space for love and transformation. Being gracious is more than accepting outcasts. It is seeking ways to heal them and restore them to community. My love for Kurt meant listening to his story, offering my friendship, and doing all in my power to help him confront and deal with whatever he had twisted his sexuality. The most effective means of transforming those we abhor is by being gracious to them. Okay, I can stop here, which is very controversy, I would say. I don't think it's proper. I don't know. Anyway, I should keep reading. Please correct me if you can. Thank you.